Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Agent of Aquarius. I am Jim Pine. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Matty D, and we are here to hopefully spread some information, spread a bit of light, break some news, and overall just have a good old time talking about the volatileness that is surrounding us in this whirling universe of chaos. It's what we seem to be trapped in, some type of thing like that. Or at least we're being told that by the news medias. How you doing, my brother?
Doing excellent, my man. Doing excellent. Thanks for asking. You're looking good, Agent Pine. I'm glad to see you again. I'm glad to be doing this once more, back in the fray.
Well, I changed my lighting, so hopefully I look more like a human. I'm just glad we both could afford these tickets to break out of the Earth's atmosphere, and we can, go out and do our own thing. So we're just out here cruising through space,
A little tour in
and
space.
yeah, and hopefully we have a little bit of fun while we're at it.
Hey, I have
So
to tell you though, in all seriousness, I'm gonna miss that sex doll look you were carrying before. But I'll deal with you being more of a
sex
human.
doll look.
Yeah. You just look rubbery and plastic. Oh yeah.
Oh, so now you see, you always told me I look good. You were just lying to me the whole time. Thanks, bro. Thanks. I kept saying, no, you look better. And you're like, no, you look fine. And I'm over here just looking like a freaking China doll. And that's not, well, first of all, if that wasn't racist, no, they used to have China dolls. They're dolls made of porcelain. I think they were made in China or made of porcelain, which was called China back in the day. Okay.
And
All
don't
right.
worry, I was messing with you. You
The
look great all the
China,
other times.
the China
And
doll.
um, and you didn't really look like a sex doll, but it was kind of funny.
I think you're now putting on what you thought about me. You couldn't help it when you looked at me like, I wish he was my little sex doll. But that's for the other podcast. Two in the I don't even know. Here we are. We it's like, where do you start? Here we are on the Ides of March. Wait, is that the first? Is that the Ides of
I don't know.
March?
Maybe it was.
March 1st.
It is
Uh
March 1st. I
it
don't
is
know what the
March
odds of
1st.
March are. Is that the 11th?
Ides, I think, is first, but here we are caught in this false calendar, in a false history, in this matrix that we already have talked about being Mayan illusion. But in that third dimensional realm where we are existing in a group consciousness still, there's a lot going on. Katt
Bro,
Williams, what's up?
my beautiful bride asked me about something like that today. She was like, "How do we even know it's March 1st?" Because we were having this joke about, is it February or March? She's like, "How do we even know it's March 1st?" I'm like, I mean, ultimately we don't, because they're just names attached to a day. But I brought up that stuff like, sept for 7, oct for 8.
Eight,
That's 2 months off.
December, deck is 10.
Yeah. Now is it 3/1/24 or is it 1/1/24?
Bro, what year is it? I'm going to tell you something right now. I think somebody's bride might be taking a little stroll down podcast lane, bro. It sounds like she might have been listening to our old podcast over here.
She might have been listening to an old podcast
We
getting
might.
conspiratorial.
We're wondering where the extra one listener had come from, dude. I've been I can
Yeah, well,
track.
they got us to 6 or something like
Yeah, I'm like, okay,
that.
I listen. That's the one. Matt, okay, his mom, my other buddy, and we've been wondering who the fifth, this Mr. Fiddle is. And now I think we might have solved some things.
Which is really funny because I stopped boring the shit out of her years ago talking about my trash talk. And
Well,
maybe she is tuning in now. That'd be great.
truth of the matter, and this has nothing to do with her. This is on a whole. It's like literally just think of any subject. Sewing, okay? Sewing, right?
So in check.
Somebody just like okay, no, we're just gonna take this out. Like just somebody in your life wants to talk to you about sewing, and you're gonna tune out. It's not because you don't care about sewing or you don't think sewing's real. It's not that like you're like a conspiracy of the Singer manufacturing company that bought out the Singer sewing machine, but like you would tune out because you're like, I don't care about sewing. And that's probably what a lot of people, when me and you were in conversations, they probably just go, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not that they don't
Yeah.
care
No,
about the
you're
results of what we're talking about. Like, how could you not care about this? It's like you can't wear pants without sewing. Like, we need the stitches. Do you know why they're even called stitches? Like, and I get it, but people come around, and someday you might be interested in sewing, and that's when you'd start listening, and that's maybe where
Is
we're
that
at.
when I apply my critical thinking too when I'm interested?
I mean, you obviously, if you're interested, you maybe put more effort into your thought, possibly.
Yeah. And well, I'll tell you the reason I brought that up was we have been critical of people for not using their critical thinking.
Hmm.
And it clicked on me the other day how silly that was because people who don't use their critical thinking for what is important to us, how the world works, who are they, all that stuff, because they don't care or have reasons not to. They use their critical thinking all the time on
Hmm.
at their work, with their relationships, on their football fantasy league, all kinds of stuff. People
Hmm.
use critical thinking all the time. But when it comes to something like basketball for me, I'm the NPC. Like I'm
Yeah.
it. I don't apply critical thinking to that. I don't understand dive into understand it. Like I understand basketball. I played the game, but I'm just not into it, so I don't think too deep on it. And when we've been critical before, people, with that, like, how could you not care about these things that I'm talking about? That's kind of it. It's like, yeah, you have critical thinking, and you might not use it on shit I care about, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I I I, I need to remind myself of that sometimes.
Well, yeah, we got to be compassionate, and we do get volatile at times, and we do call people out. And it's good to know my trash truck is very regular because it's right at this
Hey, trash
time
truck.
every week.
That is a regular on the show. Good job, trash truck.
Um, so you're, I believe you're 100% correct. I think the part of it where we get so passionate about wondering why people wouldn't care is because we're not talking about sewing. And
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not attacking anybody. I think this is a whole thought. It's because we are like, it's kind of like an altruistic thing we're talking about. It's like, whoa, this is for the whole group. Like the tide's rising, like, whoa, what are we doing, bro? Like, and I think that's why. And we're also not just talking about entertainment. We're trying to, like, this is a kind of a big deal. And if we're not aware to how people are manipulating us, we may then become manipulated and then be living in a world where you didn't know you just got tricked into. So I think that could be possibly part of the reason we're so impassioned with what we're talking about.
Hmm.
But it doesn't mean that those people can't critically think. You're 100% correct. I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's just because we know we're thinking about the outcome, and most people can't even digest the first sentence because they're just like, this is a lot.
It's a lot. The
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance is there. The
And yet,
normalcy bias is there. All those things are there to prevent you from going deep into it. To say nothing of a life of propaganda.
exactly. That was, yeah. Like literally, and you've also been programmed to not want to pay attention to this. Like they've somehow
Yeah.
created mindsets where you go, well, it doesn't affect me, or no, it's not my world. It's like this whole thing. It's like, right on.
And I'm going to
Um,
toss another one in there too. I have previously mentioned that I know a person whose parents were paperclipped into this country. But I only bring it up because I like reminding the world that that is a thing. But this person had something really smart to say to me one day along the lines of, might bug you that people don't have the same passion for this as you do, but you also have no idea what their soul path is. And you might be looking at this just in the context of some like worldly 3D stuff, as opposed to a larger soul perspective that goes multiple lifetimes and things of that nature. And I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I better slow up a little bit because I want people to think about these things, maybe because I do, but I think about it because I think it's important. Maybe that's what my soul path is, to shine a light on this stuff and help break down how this world works. But not everyone, other people might not be on that path. They might have very important things to focus on that have to do with their own soul's evolution, and this isn't part of it.
so this is this whole first part of this podcast, everybody, is basically a disclaimer that we didn't know we were doing. To please release us from our previous words. We are just doing this stuff live. We apologize for casting negative words, because that's this podcast supposed to be about consciousness, supposed to be about evolution of humans, And that's kind of where sometimes, like as we say, hey, when you're shining a light, sometimes you see the nasty stuff, and we only talk about it to hopefully illuminate. That's it. We're not here to spread fear. That is the one thing we definitely are not here to do, is spread fear. We almost always end on some type of positive note. We usually can spin things into, yes, we just shined a light on a monster. And, we get a little critical. We're being a little bit too much of a critical thinker, maybe coming down on other people. And not everybody's on this life path. So I hope everyone could take our apology, and we can move on, because like I said, we're just here to talk about the bigger thing. Try we're focused down the road. We're not like right here. We're focused on where we want to be, manifesting a world.
Well, let's talk about the thing then, my brother. You had
Oh yeah.
you're
Well, I have
about
to
to
do
jump
it.
into something.
Yeah, I have to do the official break the news.
Where's the beep 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 beep?
That's your job. It's like I'm like Sam Tripoli when I say, and then he says, and then XG says, let's rock," or whatever.
I forget what they say.
It's in the
There.
beginning. Sam says something and XG fills in. So when I go,
Oh, I'm
so
here to, and the other guy says raw.
rock. Yeah. So when I go, break the news.
I'll have to cue in my part.
Well, let's do it right. Let's practice it right now. One more time. Break the news.
No, I'm kidding.
Look at you, improv master. You're like, no, I'm doing yes and. I'm not going to go along with this.
You
Okay.
want to break some news? I found news that I just want to break because
It sounds like ridiculous on the front, but I like this news.
all right. So again, we pulled this stuff from Google News because you want to talk about like controlled information. Anyway, the propagandists today are telling us Joe Rogan calls out Katt Williams' hard to believe confession. JRE fans say this was painful to listen to.
Oh my God. What kind of confession is this going to be about, Matt?
Do you want to know? Because Katt Williams has been dropping some stuff lately. He's been stirring the pot, getting people all mad at him.
I have listened to the beginning of that podcast, maybe about 30 minutes, and it's amazing so far. I wonder what this confession is, because he's talking about wild stuff, bro.
Real wild. Well, here it comes. You ready? Hold on to your chairs, people.
Guys,
Katt Williams' reading habits raise eyebrows from fans and Joe Rogan. So, what Google reports on in a 3-hour interview with Joe Rogan with Katt Williams, who's just dropping all kinds of bombs, stirring up the hornet's nest in Hollywood. Katt says he would read 60 books
a week.
Wait, does this say? Oh yeah, it says his vocabulary is nowhere near somewhere 60 books a week or something like that. Katt Williams reads 60 books a week, and Joe Rogan pushes back because he doesn't let people just walk over him on his show. He's going to push back against falsehoods. That is what I really need to break, because Google is coming out and reporting they took the time to have someone write a story about the Katt Williams Joe Rogan interview, and of all the things they could have got into on this show, what do they get into? Whether or not Katt Williams actually reads 60 books in a week. That's what's important. That's what Google wants you to take away from the Rogan interview before you ever hear it.
Bro, this is so controversial. We may get pulled off the internet for even speaking about this.
We deserve it.
I'm surprised Joe Rogan's episode is still even up. It's so interesting that they probably had some AI journalist. They had AI probably write a program about it and said, we need, because here it is. First place I ever heard this word. You told me this, and this is what they did. Character assassination. He's a liar. He lied about how many books he reads. So can we really believe him about these other things he's talking about? So the character
good point.
Just
Good
a character
point.
assassination. That's all that is, bro.
So
you won't
right
even
off the
listen.
bat, they just smear him.
Yeah,
Can't trust this guy. He said he read X amount of books.
They could have already, like, this has already been brought up a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, whenever he was on Club Shay Shay, and he said that thing. That's where that comes from. He didn't like say it on Joe Rogan, I don't think. I haven't listened to all of it yet, but I think Joe Rogan's calling him out on some of the stuff he said, and that's the thing. Not about the not about the sex cult in Hollywood, not about the sex cult in the music industry that he spoke about, not about these people that are being like yeah, taken advantage
See,
of.
dude, that's exactly how I want to break this story into 1,000 little pieces. This is why I want to break the news on this topic this day, because Google comes out knowing they have a large audience. They character assassinate this guy, make you think he's a liar, and make you think that the most important thing worth reporting about from that interview is the fact that Katt lied about how many books he reads. Now, please tell me, because you know this better than I do, tell me some of the stuff Katt Williams has been saying that actually is controversial.
He'll speak deeply on consciousness. He could speak deeply. He in the part I was watching, he had a big necklace on, like platinum or silver with like diamonds, it looks like, in it, big thick necklace. And then on the necklace he has a big pendant. And then he's like, "Do you know what this is, Joe Rogan?" He's like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, this is the," he starts talking about how he, I don't know if he had
Wait, I
made.
think you have to say it correctly. Do you know what this is, Joe Rogan?
"Do you know what this
How does
is,
he
Joe
say it?
Rogan?"
He's got a great way of speaking.
Oh, he has a such a like light voice, like a little elf, like a little dark elf, and just he's great. He's so smart. He's so articulate, and his mind expands. And
Hey, can you give the Dungeons and Dragons disclaimer, please? Since
oh,
you used the
drow
phrase
elf.
dark elf.
Yeah. Well,
It's not because he's black. It's
no,
like I know what
no.
it rolled off your tongue way natural because it's easy because you're like immersed in Dungeons and Dragons on the regular.
I
And a
play a
dark
lot.
elf is a black skinned elf, not African black, but like actually the color black.
Yeah, and they've usually have white or silver hair. They're called drow elf,
Yeah.
DROW, drow elf. Yeah, they're dark elves. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Disclaimer, everybody. Once again, can't be racist if I believe it were multidimensional carbon-based forms of life. Like racism is a hard thing to pull off. But okay, so he's talking about this time device he has. It's ancient time device that's like you see in the artwork of Sumeria and all these ancient um, pictures, thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, these devices they wear on their wrists and things like that. So he has one, like, I don't know if he had it commissioned or if he bought it from somewhere and somebody made it, but they start talking about that. They're talking, how is that not controversial? That he's talking about some type of time device, the ancient time device. It's also like a compass. Like, what? That's not it. That's not the controversial. I haven't listened to much more than that. Um he's just he's a victor, a champion, much like a warrior. Is That's the Katt Williams. That's what I've gotten from him, because he's fought an uphill battle. He stood up for his morals and his values. He's helped many people and not really tried to become recognized for doing it. And and then they just want to character assassinate him. He like nobody ever uh says a number and then it's bigger than what it is, or he also been drinking when he said that. Let's be honest. So how is that like?
Well, let's also make sure we talk about the fact that he said actors and music artists are getting, you know,
Let's
fucked
be
in the ass
PG.
because
Well,
that's the price of
that's
admission.
I'm writing this time down. That's a bad, like, we don't want to say that. uh it's
Do we
the
not want to say that? Because that's what
No, we
Katt
don't.
Williams was saying. He's saying that these guys,
Well,
that
how
guys
about
and girls too, are being asked to
how
submit
about be
sexually to get the roles and the parts in the
yes,
record deals.
how about you say it like that? That's it. Like,
Because we're trying not to be swearing heathen pagans,
well, there's no reason. We don't need to. It's a vile thing. We don't need to make it sound more intense, you know.
or do
Uh,
we? Maybe just to get the point across, because these guys are giving up their bodies for in exchange for, the contract. That's
they're
what Katt
giving up
Williams
more
was
than their
saying so
body.
controversially.
They're giving up more than their body. They're giving up their part of their soul and their essence. When you That's the making a deal with the devil. There's too many artists that have literally said they made a deal with the devil. Some have done it at an early age on their own, like Roseanne, self-proclaimed, has made a pact with the devil.
She said
Uh,
that, didn't she?
yeah, but she did it on her own. She wasn't part of some ritual. in a music industry high, you know, some CEO of a music industry's office, and then, oh, you're gonna do this deal with us, and then they, you know, you sign lines and everything, probably with your own blood, or that's how it's or that's how it's described. And then
Bro,
they take
Roseanne
your
actually
essence.
didn't do it alone because
I
she claimed to have had 17 personalities at the time, so she was
um,
definitely not alone.
I think this was before a car accident, but
Oh, is
or was
that
she?
how that came about? The
I
multiple
believe,
personalities?
yeah, I
Was it?
believe she gets hit by a car, and
Wow.
then that's when she goes from one type of person to like a different. She kind of switches from some traumatic event.
All
That's
right.
mostly her words.
All right. But big
But back to
controversy from
this.
Katt Williams, though, is what he
Well,
said about these artists.
actually, Roseanne's an interesting one to bring up because she made it up through Hollywood, but claims she never got to go to the parties, and she says it in her own vulgar way. But it's she wasn't invited, and it's because what happens is, you got to remember, this isn't just like a bunch of rich people figuring things out. This is intelligence agencies. This is studied behavior of humans. We've talked about it before on this podcast. What they do is they open a door and you see into the next room. And if you walk into that room, then they judge you and they watch. They see how you're acting. And then they open a door to the next room and then they see how you act and how you watch. And then you're like, wow, this is crazy. And then you don't go any further. Or maybe you have so much to give them, they just keep you at that level, you know? And then, but you can still gain in popularity, or you can still be a phenom to the world. We are manifestors, and you can, you know, she did make a deal with her own devil.
Yeah. Well, is there
Um,
another
but
personality type going through these doors?
well, yeah, there's the people who'll just keep going through the doors because
Hmm.
you become uh greedy for money.
Hmm.
You know, you
And
have this
fame.
money greed and fame and power, and that's what they think. But you're still like always going to be this. It becomes very ugly. Uh, if you're watching this podcast, you've made it up to here. If this is your first episode you're listening to, and you've never listened to anything to do with controversial thoughts or people trying to investigate the truth, then you might be like, "What?" But no, I mean, there's the book Chaos that's written about what happened, like Charlie Manson and all that, that whole situation. Like this has been happening since the 40s or 50s, it seems like, and then they've only gotten better. And now Katt Williams speaks out about it, and he's like, no, all these guys did a lot of they had basically, I think it's called sodomy
Yeah.
done to them, and that's, you know, there you go.
Well, and while all that's happening, you have news organizations like this one, which oddly enough, this Google put up this news story 19 hours ago from Essentially Sports. Like that's where they pulled this article from. But they're pushing it out to probably a much bigger audience than Essentially Sports. And and they're trying to hide the idea of that this stuff goes on and has been going on for a long time. They they we're breaking this news story simply because this is a method that these organizations do, that this like that they do. They're putting out this story to not to prevent you from thinking deeper into it and about the other things that Katt Williams said.
Mm-hmm. Which is a common practice where they do either misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, because
We do malinformation,
we
not
do
them.
malinformation, but this is their tactic they do. And then this was a character assassination. They discussed one little weird thing that somebody misspoke on a podcast months ago and said, and it's like, is that really the important part? Is that but this is what they do. This is the character assassination. This is the misinformation. And it happens all over. It's permeated our society. um we've spoken about all of this before, and that's why we picked this article today, like you said, was because we're going to break this apart. This is ridiculous. Like, that's the story, that's the controversial thing to talk
Mhm.
about. Okay, sure, 3 hours they were on air together, I think, smoking weed and possibly drinking too, and that's it.
Yeah.
They didn't come up with nothing more. You know what they'd say? The news editor would say, their stuff, that's too salacious.
Oh, our favorite word coming
Oh
from the
yeah.
establishment.
Oh yeah, keep Ghislaine's story out of the news. It's too salacious. It
And
seems
for
like
anyone who doesn't know, that's quite literally where why he's using that word.
yeah, Johnny
Agent,
Depp's poop trial was on the TV. They'd show the poop trial on TV, while they could have been showing Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, but Ghislaine Maxwell's was too salacious.
yeah, it was
The
a closed
lady who's
courtroom.
yeah, the lady who has 20 years in prison for trafficking, for human trafficking and sex trafficking,
And
but
sex trafficking to
nobody's
minors.
been arrested. No, like she's 20 years for doing this, but nobody's been arrested.
Yeah, and we couldn't hear the court case because the judge ruled that the contents of what was being said were too salacious, as if we can't handle that because we could handle what's her name taking a dump on Johnny's bed.
What was too salacious was the judge, her son and her husband being murdered in their house.
Wasn't that a different judge
Well, yeah,
on a
that
different part
judge
of the
didn't
Epstein
say.
case?
It's earlier on with trying to figure out the things with Ghislaine and are they going to charge her? And she
Mhm.
was more of like a primary judge hearing it. But, you know, where's that story? They don't want to talk about that too much. Like a judge, a literal judge, somebody put a hit on the judge
And
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 killed
it was a
people.
botched hit that killed her husband and son. But
Or was it not a botched hit and they wanted to send a message also? It
oh,
sounded like it was a botched hit.
that's probably a more likely thing.
When you listen to the story, it does sound like it was a botched hit, but it's like you don't know their intentions. They might have said, "Don't kill her, kill those two," and then you didn't kill a federal judge at least. And then,
Yeah, Jimmy, honestly, does that stuff happen in this country?
yeah, yeah, because you know how you know it happens here because we literally have a government agency called the Central Intelligence Agency that has, through FISA, we know has done assassinations in other countries. So to think they wouldn't do it here is to be a bit you're being a bit
Naive.
close,
You're being naive.
naive. I
You're
was
being
gonna say
so naive.
closed minded, but yeah, naive is better.
You know,
Yeah,
when I tell people it's like cancer is a $200 billion a year industry, and if someone figures out how to cure that thing, they're going to get discredited, disowned, or dead. And people think that's crazy. It's like, no, you don't understand what $200 billion means. You're choosing not to understand, or you're not using your critical thinking on that. Like these industries are so big that when someone comes along with an idea or an invention that's going to undermine that profit flow, it's like, I'm sorry. I go to a climbing gym. It's a lovely little spot in my town, and they're doing a um, a tournament, cancer raising fundraiser. And I just look at it, it's like, man, you're raising money to give to an industry that will never give you the cure because there's so much money in it and so much write-in on it. They'll never give us a cure for it. It's just like when Stanley Meyer created a car in the 70s that ran on water and ended up dead. Do you think the oil industry is going to give up hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue a year because some guy comes around and makes a car that runs on water? And I make the joke, oh, does that really happen in this country? Of course it does.
it's
Of
happened.
course it does. It
It's
would be,
happened.
it's just so like frightfully naive, again, to use the word, to think it doesn't, because what is human nature if not encapsulating the ability to kill to keep what you have?
Well, yeah, that's and I'm not saying that it's correct, but the Mavlov's hierarchy of needs,
Hmm.
number one, safety and security.
Number one.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
because that's like our animal instinct is safety and security. That's
Yeah.
your basic level. Have food, don't get killed. It's, it's basic. That's our basic. That's us working from our like reptilian brain,
Right.
that are real animalistic, and that's why you see the evil in the world. And some, whatever. It's just a lot to go on. And I think that's a good break the news because we literally just want to. That's what most of the time we're trying to do in that segment is just break like this narrative apart. Like this is crazy talk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this
Because
is crazy talk. This is where they do we're showing you they're doing a misinformation, a disinformation, because that they don't want to talk about the other things. They're just like, we'll assassinate his character. So
right. Right.
all right.
And it may come to a point where you got to assassinate the person, but in Cat Williams' case, not quite there.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to. You just kill their words. You give their words no power or you take power
Yeah,
out
and
of their words, unless you're willing to listen to these people and then form your own judgment and critically think about it, you
yeah,
know?
and thankfully it doesn't always work. You know, like Joe Rogan's ratings and numbers and stuff like that, they're still like pre-COVID
It's it's
or
his
higher.
numbers his way higher, dude, because he just signed another deal.
Hmm.
He did another 5-year deal, and this time he's allowed to go back and put his stuff on all the other platforms. So now you don't have to have Spotify. You can listen to Joe Rogan on iTunes again. You can listen on YouTube.
Right.
So he's
So
completely he just expanded again,
right. And
basically.
when he talked about ivermectin, they came at him hard. They shoved the horse paste down his throat, trying to make him look like an idiot. But it doesn't always work because they try. They're not always successful. Them.
Hmm. Yeah, them. Well, I like it. I like what we did today with this. On to like further thoughts. Now we have two different subjects and they're both gigantor. And I'll just go into this one. And then the other one maybe we'll just basically touch a little if we get there.
Hmm.
I was watching a video today of a lady in Lakewood, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver, and she was speaking at a town council meeting. It was a city council, and she was speaking about how it's like sad. I'm going to guess her to be 70. Okay, I'm going to say the lady's 70, in her 70s. She's on fixed income because she's retired. She worked for the government, and her husband was retired teacher. So they have a pension, they have money to live on, and she, basically hired professionals to help her understand, can I survive the rest of my life in this retirement with this money coming in? They're like, absolutely, you got more than enough. And that people that planned on that didn't foresee where we'd be with gas, with food prices, inflation of the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, these people didn't foresee like this world where it was like, if there was a chart showing it, it's like all of a sudden there's a just giant jump in the last years. Okay. 3, 4, 5 years with COVID. COVID knocked the poop out of people, dude. It really put people down and made them dig into their savings if they had it. And unless you were really wealthy, you may have got rid of your savings. But here we come out of this situation, and people are hurting. And this lady started speaking about how the city of Lakewood, well, it was the city of Denver, I believe she was speaking on, with the amount of people, these illegal immigrants that have entered the country illegally, but then are just given free reign into the country and they're released. There's over 40,000 in Denver alone. And she started speaking about how she pays taxes and that she can't get help, and especially won't, because there's this unforeseen crisis about to happen where the city of Denver is only allotted 75 or $78 million for this year to help with these 40,000 migrants. And she starts just breaking down how much it costs to feed them, how much it costs to house them. And now it's upwards of $500 million that it's going to cost the city of Denver. And now she's because of things have just changed. Taxes keep going up. Every expenses of everything have gone up. She has to stand in food lines to get free food, like food assistance, and is being elbowed. She's a tax-paying citizen. She pays taxes, still property taxes, and taxes on her retirement funds. And
And on her
she
food and
and
on
her
her
food,
whatever.
gas, everywhere you turn, you're paying a tax. And she's standing in food lines and being elbowed out of the food lines by young male migrants or immigrants that are like really taxing the system. And can the system handle it? And she puts the numbers out and just shows like this is unsustainable. We're headed towards a huge crisis, because what happens when either you have to feed these people and house them, or now you have 40,000 people, they're going to be, I guess, homeless and don't have any source of income, which we know then, now that goes back, Matlock's hierarchy of needs, people make some harsh decisions when they're only focused on safety and security. Those people tend to steal, crime will go up. This is what happens. And this older lady, you just listened to it, she broke it down all so well. And it was like, oh God, this is coming. This is
Yeah.
coming.
And
This is going to be, yeah, there's no denying that this is about to happen.
and this is in a city that wouldn't do anything really. I mean, no, I'm sorry. No, I wouldn't do anything. That's not fair. Just so everyone knows, I know the city of Denver, nice town, been there before, know a bit about it. But what drives me nuts about hearing a story like that is, what has Denver done for the homeless in our city? And they do things. Oh, I blew the whistle myself in our city. So Denver has done things for the homeless population, but no matter what they did, you could tell clearly it's not enough because every street corner has its panhandlers. There's tents all over downtown. You could drive all around the city and its suburbs, and you'll still see tents all over not all over the place, but in places. It's not as bad as Los Angeles, but there's a serious homeless problem here, and it's been like that for years. And what has ever been done for those guys? Or when do I see in a ballot something like, hey, we're going to increase payments to older retired Denverites who can't meet the demands of inflation? When have we ever done anything? Where is this $500 million for the people of Denver? And it's like I said, they do things, they really do things, but not to the extent they're doing for a bunch of people who came to this country illegally, who quite frankly have not been allowed into this country because of altruistic means. They are here to benefit someone else's agenda. These people are being used for some reason that is not quite clear to my mind now. But again, back to this point, it makes me a little nuts. It's like you could have homeless people all over the city for years, and then all of a sudden there's all this money for migrants. Although, as you said, apparently there isn't money. There's 70 million, but they need 500 million. So first, why is this money being spent when it? Why wasn't it spent on people who live here? First of all, and another thing you said too is that this woman said she's being pushed aside by young migrant men. And you could drive by any shelter at any time in this city and have a look around, and it's not a bunch of families and kids running around. It's dudes. It's just a bunch of bros who are like, I'm thinking of one place in particular I drive by on the regular, and it's just always a bunch of guys, and they end up kind of hanging out on all the intersections. And the game now is to just have a water bottle and a squeegee, but they're panhandling. They came here thinking that they would get a better life, and what are they doing? They're on the corner with the homeless people looking for handouts. And there's this huge thing that doesn't seem to be clear to people. This country doesn't look after its citizens.
What,
And this
what,
country has a lot of poverty, and this country has a lot of homeless. Now you have people coming from all around the world to this country, and why would you expect to be anything other than that lower income tier? Like there's
this is purposefully being done. This is
that's
the
absolutely,
you
and they're
cannot
being
overlook
used.
this. What's happened in this country, we'll say up until several years ago when illegal immigration just kind of spiked and went out of control. It was pretty maintained levels, depending on the president in office, that seemed to dictate the amount coming through. But it's only increased, and it's gotten really radical, the numbers in the last couple of years. But okay, so that alone is just wild, because you cannot say that open borders are okay if you have if you have locked your house at night when you go to sleep. Like you're being a hypocrite. That's crazy. You can't just let anybody through, because you're going to end up. Why wouldn't criminals want to come here when all they've heard is like, oh well, they're really relaxed on the law. As long as you steal under $1,000, they won't even prosecute you. You probably won't just get away. Like, stores are crazy when you walk into them now. To see a CVS just has the weirdest things locked up. It's like you can't get anything. So I think the important thing is to watch. No, we've gone to war. This country has become extremely militarized and has gone to war. The people that went to war have kind of been abandoned, and the veterans are not treated all that well. They're part of the homeless population, but just alone, like, these people have gone to war to spread some type
Mhm.
of freedom, because we want more democracy, even though we're a republic. We're like a constitutional republic. We're not even a democracy. But here we are taking in like, I just want to read. This is from Emma Lazarus in 1883. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. It's the Iconic words from the New Colossus, written by Emma Lazarus. And it's on the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. So I get it. But right now, like, we are $34 trillion, only it had up to 35, I'm sure very soon, $1 trillion in debt. Our country is going to lose its credit rating if it hasn't already. We're not the world currency anymore. That's been lost. That debt, like, it's unpayable. You can't pay that. That's a crazy number. And it's only headed up. And then we're doing things like this where we're also like, yeah, no, anybody can come in. Just come on in. Millions of people come on in. 40,000 alone in Denver. That's a huge, if you can think about government the way it has to operate, they have budgets and it's all done on taxes, and then they change little points of a percentage to increase this because then they need that. And then you just throw 34 or 40,000 new people that don't have jobs
and
and
need
are going to
housing and
tax
need
the system
food
in a city, not a country,
and
not in
healthcare,
America.
bro. Healthcare too.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is a really horrible idea, what we've done. Not to say we will not take in the poor, the tired, the huddled masses that want to breathe free. Get that. I get that. I'm all about liberty. But we have created ways to do this. I know people that have had to work hard and pay money to do it, and then they do it that way. They pass the test and they become a U.S. citizen, and big deal, and they feel so proud. And those people become so proud. And here we are now. You could just come in illegally. You're going to get a debit card. You're going to get a phone if you don't have one. They'll put you up for free. They'll feed you. They're going to do everything. We don't have the money to do this, and we don't have a plan to pay for what we're doing right now. It's literally it's another thing. It's not the thing. It's another thing they're piling on top of how they can just destroy America, because that's what's happening right now.
It is. Can I actually interject real quick and tell you one of the ways they are paying for it?
Please.
And this is kind of like weirdly interesting. You'll get it in a second, but the Parks and Recreation budget was cut. And you might see a small Denver park that would normally have a very pretty garden of like plants and flowers and colorful growing things. And a lot of the Denver parks won't have that this year because they're feeding people and housing people. Now, in any normal situation, that makes a ton of sense. It's like, wait, so if we could go without a nice, colorful plant garden in the park down the street and you would feed and house people, that sounds honorable and compassionate and all kinds of things, but they didn't do that for returning veterans. They didn't do that for Denver's homeless. They didn't do that for Denver's poor. They didn't do that for any compassionate reason prior to this migrant crisis, but they're doing it now. Someone has an agenda, because what we know is that the governments in this country, state, federal, all the rest, they generally don't care about the people who live here, or they would have cut out those gardens sooner to take care of our veterans, but they didn't. So they're doing it now, and it's not because they care about people. These migrants are being used for some purpose, like you just said, to destabilize this country, to destroy this country. That's just one method of many methods. It's just one element in the whole scheme. But that's this is part of this bigger picture that's going on here.
Yeah, they couldn't do it before, but now they can just give away the house right now. But they couldn't do it before. It was like the loopholes that would have to be jumped. And I just want to say right now, I think there's a stipulation that we're going to say right now, and I think I'm speaking for both of us. This isn't to blame the migrants. Listen, if you create tax codes and then expect rich people to not like abuse the tax code legally and literally pay the amount of taxes they're supposed to, they don't cheat anything, but the tax code is basically cheating. Then like they're going to do that. Rich people are going to, like, when you have the, like, yeah, I'd love to save $500,000 in taxes.
If you give someone a loophole, they'll use it. And you
Oh
need a
yeah,
lawyer to know the loophole, which means you
yeah,
need money.
yeah. Go buy a Land Cruiser, and that's over 5,000 pounds, and that car counts as this thing of a car, and then you can write the whole thing off because it's like a farm vehicle or some crap. Yeah, bro, It's the complete system. I mean, here we are, episode 23. The complete system is becoming eroded. We're not attacking the migrants. They're just the symbol. All the migrants are is a symbol of a broken system that would allow this to happen in so disorderly a way. And we haven't even spoken about the children that are coming across with no like oh no, here's a number, and then they don't get checked on again. They get checked one time. They checked it to see if this is the right person they're supposed to go to. That's one time. Never. There's no recheck.
Yeah, and we've all heard there's something like 87,000 children who are unaccounted for that have come into this country
Bro,
as migrants.
that was a number from like 5 months, 4 months ago. Just
Hmm.
think of that. You didn't hear that number today. You heard that number 4 months ago, I bet.
Yeah, damn near last summer.
Yeah. So like 6 months ago. So like how many more is it now? But like what is going on? This isn't what liberty is about. This isn't what the freedom that they spoke, Emma Lazarus spoke of in that poem. That's not, this isn't it. This is like an organized chaos to destabilize what's happening, destabilize this society. That's what it seems like to me. Not blaming the migrants. I'm blaming the policymakers that would become so irrational. They would become so ignorant to so naive. That's how they act. They're acting
Hmm.
naive, like,
Hmm.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, this is to protect it. In every city where the governors or the mayor, I'm sorry, every city where the mayors would be like Eric Adams. Oh no, we got to bring them in New York now. Like totally different tune a year later when he's like, oh, we're overburdened here. The federal government's got to help us
Hmm.
out on this. Like, what did you think
Texas
was
did
going
it
to
to us.
happen? Yeah, what did you think was going to happen? Like, you just can't.
Well, we're talking about this is being done intentionally to destabilize this country, and there's this weird phenomenon that I'll bring up. You have people being interviewed by mainstream news organizations like ABC, and they did a story. I think it was ABC, whatever it was something mainstream, but they did a story on Chinese migrants, and they were interviewing Chinese migrants who are coming into this country illegally. And like, so what's going on? What's happening? We came from China. Why? I thought China's doing great. No, it's only doing great for the upper class. Everyone else were very poor. So I've decided to come here. How'd you get here? Well, I had to pay $20,000 to go through this route. And it leaves this huge question mark. It's like, hang on a second. You're poor. You have no money, but you managed to get your hands on 20K. If we are hypothesizing that people are coming into this country as migrants to destabilize this country, who's paying this guy's 20 grand? Because if you're so broke that you can't make a living in China, but you could save 20,000 US, that's not broke in China. You're doing pretty good. So where's the money coming from?
Well, we've discussed it's coming from these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations, either nonprofit or for profit, but they're not governments, but they're people that make and seem like they dictate things to governments. Like,
UN.
yeah, it's UN, Red Cross, another agency. It's not, I don't think it's related in this story, but like the WHO, like these are
Hmm.
not governments. These are non-governmental agencies that are dictating policy to the world.
Yeah.
These are unelected people that are dictating what direction we should go in. Those people then have influence over media, especially in this country, where they create policies basically we talked about last week with the farmers.
Hmm.
The farmers are like, no, like, because they started creating policies, these non-governmental agencies, against the farmers. And now here we are. They're also funding this migrant crisis. I'm saying crisis. I don't know why,
No,
but
crisis is we're familiar with the phrase migrant crisis. That
okay.
works.
They're funding this migration of these immigrants
Yeah.
and these human beings. I don't want to speak. I don't like just throw these words out because I don't want it to sound like, oh, these like, but this is what's they're being funded. Like, why would they fund these people to come here? How does that, why would it benefit UN or Red Cross? Like, what is going on? And why would we just have wide open, you're in, now you're in, you just get here, you're in. If you can get your foot on the sand, you're in. Like, and it's not our government. This is another government, or these non-government agencies funding this migration And then it's being coordinated by policy of our government has then created policy to go along with this thing. Because
Keep the doors open. Yeah.
yeah, because they could have been funding this the whole time. But if our borders were secure, the people would have to come in and be registered and be checked out.
Hmm.
That's what would happen. And then we just changed that. And it just happened to be at the same time that these NGOs funded this. And so it seems like a coordinated effort by somebody. And we've just named two agencies. It's like Red Cross. What are you talking about? It's like, yeah, they're not as wholesome as you think.
I hate to say it, but maybe the biggest organizer of all is karma, because we destroy the economies, the entire third world. We invade countries all over the world, and then they show up here, and it's like, oh no, we can't have them here. It's like, well, I mean, what do you do while we were bombing their homes? Did you speak out against it? Did you tell your friends over cocktails that what we're doing is wrong, or did you just get right in line and be like, oh, yeah, it's another war because there was a dictator, or they're terrorists, or they're bad?
Yeah. Oh, Gaddafi wants to do his own currency. He wants to do a gold
No
standard.
one
He's going to
talks
make
about
us,
that. No one talked about that.
oh
No,
no, he's
Gaddafi's a
evil.
dictator. He's a bad man.
We
Bad
want to,
man.
yeah, what, yeah, it's weird because it's like that's karma. And the crazy thing is, the real karma of it is it's being coordinated and allowed by our government as well. Like it's not like, oh, this is just happening and we're being attacked. It's like without the policy of our administrations, this couldn't happen. It just would
All
not
right, so
happen.
let's answer this question. Why do the powers that stand behind our government, why does the real power in this country, why is the real power in this country doing this to this country? Why is this country being whittled down and destroyed one bit at a time, boiled slowly like the frog?
I think we've already said it. It seems to be done so that our society is being eroded because of it's going to be it's basically monetary reasons. They're going to erode us because of they're spending so much money they don't have. It's the same with Ukraine. We're just giving just billions. We've given over $100 billion. Like for what? Oh, so we can like mess with Russia? Like I don't even get any. It's just this money being poured out of nowhere. Just like we're just the champions of the world while we're 34 billion in debt. We're the guy that is begged, borrowed, and stolen, taking their kids' college fund, and they're still at the table in Vegas thinking that they're going to win. But they're $4 million in debt right now, and they make
Mm-hmm.
50,000 a year, and he's married, but he's got a hooker and he's doing drugs, and they're just like, no, we're going to make it. It's going to turn around, and it's like, no, it's not. No, it's not, Hunter Biden. It's not turning around.
Yeah, man, it's not turning around, and it is
It,
manufactured. It is not. This is not just the way it is. It didn't happen naturally. Let's remember that none of this stuff, the course of our culture and society, it's not a natural occurrence. It is managed and handled this way.
and once again, I'm not saying that this is doom and gloom. I'm not saying. I'm just saying the policies of the government are dictating these results. These results are really damaging. We will be okay. That's the truth. We're gonna be okay. We're going to be fine. It's just that it might take some hard times. We may have to go through an experience. When you become 34 trillion in debt, you got to go through a little hard times to get yourself out of that. It's just that's a big number. That somehow you're going to pay it off, and through taxing the people, like, and then taxing them at every. We're gonna be okay. I don't know what that means. In the sense that I don't have the details of how we're going to be okay. I don't know. Yeah,
Well, we
but I
could.
know why we'll be okay because we have indomitable spirits, or
I think, like, yeah, I
we
think
can.
that's why this country needs to be destroyed, because for globalism to happen, I think for the real globalist system to take complete hold of this planet, you can't have a free and powerful American middle class. If the people in this country weren't so crushed by poverty, if the people in this country weren't chasing, we weren't trying to fight through their debts and weren't being so manipulated by media, I think the people of this country would really be a force for setting things right in the world, because When you look at the wars our country has engaged in, the government has lied the population into it every time. It is not, if you look at this country as a whole, and I'm not saying like, don't think about the divides in this country right now. If you look at this country as a whole, it will never go to war unless it seems like it's the right thing to do. And every time we go to war, it's always the wrong thing, but we're given these lies. We're fed these lies that weapons of mass destruction, he's a dictator. We got to bring democracy. You know, these are all noble ideals, but they don't match the reality. I think if the American people together collectively had the ability to have a little space to figure stuff out and relax a little bit and look at the world that they live in, I think we would be sovereign to the point where we would make things go well as opposed to the way it's going now, because now everyone's just so distracted and often so desperate. We're just not making
And divided.
and divided. Yeah, we're just not making good decisions. You're a
Oh
little
yeah,
frozen
because
on the screen
so
there, buddy. Are you frozen on your side?
no, no, you're frozen on my side though.
Oh,
Um, I think the division's a huge part of it also. You know, unfortunately, that poem by Emma, bring us you're tired, you're poor. Uh, it seems like we've become the tired and the poor, and we're not breathing freedom in general right now, or at least it's
mm-hmm.
not being shown to us in that way. And I'm gonna just keep going back to it. We're gonna be okay. We just have to stop no, we have to be united instead of stop being divided. We need to be united. Picture that. Picture us united. We need to stop with the racism. I don't mean like there's idiots. There are idiots that are actually racists in actually every race. Let's not focus on the idiots, okay? Because there's more people that aren't. Let's focus on the majority that are they understand. And if we would actually be the universe would be explained to us in a more truthful way, and we'd know about the true history of us as human. uh I think we'd have much different results to the way we act towards each other. I think we can overcome all of this, and we got to do it through creating a brother and a sisterhood, not being divided,
Not being
become
divided.
united. Yeah, become united. And it's going to be okay. Your spirit having a human experience, okay? It's going to be okay. The one thing you will want to do is you're going to want to be a warrior. You're going to want to be focused on manifesting the reality you want to picture, not the one that's being told to you to picture. Okay? We don't think peace on earth. Just think compassion. Peace on earth, that's a grand thought, but it's kind of hard to conceptualize, because all you do is picture war, and I'm like, no, not that. So it's a weird concept, but become local, know your neighbors, and be kind to each other. That's my message.
Yeah, don't get caught up in the B or T thing, because that parasite ruling class that is pulling the strings, they want you divided, thinking if you vote for B or T, that makes you bad. And that's your neighbor. And you don't need to be blaming your neighbor for the problems of the world. It's not your neighbor that did it. Your neighbor is, in fact, your best ally, no matter who they vote for,
Hmm.
because we're the sleeping giant, and if we wake up, then we can be sovereign again.